Holy crap. 1,500 subscribers. Might sound like a silly and small number to be commemorating. However, I never intended on becoming a YouTuber type of person. Once I posted the Greta Van Fleet interview, a lot of people started to subscribe to me. Then I realized that people were listening, and I'm really excited about it. 1,000 subscribers was important for me to have my channel remonetized again. That is a completely other story with the way that YouTube is screwing me over because of that. I am aware that it is a lot of work. You need to put a lot of time into it. I kind of fell off of it for a little while the past few weeks because of all the traveling I had and everything to do. And I am selective about what I listen to and what I like and what I want to review and focus on. Therefore, my following is not going to expand as rapidly as other channels would and do. I'm just kind of riding it along in the meantime and just having fun with it, because it's cool having people that you don't know from all over the place talk to you and actually want to hear what you have to say about things. It's cool. You know, I used to consider myself pretty much an extroverted introvert, and I think that this has helped me develop my communication skills. Even though I did already have them, I was already working with Alternative Nation and I was already interviewing artists and everything by that point. But it has helped me become a lot more comfortable in front of a camera, speaking to somewhat of an audience, and kind of helped me in a way to realize that radio is ultimately the career path that I want to take, because it's pretty much the closest thing in music media to what I do for Alternative Nation, but full-time. With that, I wanted to kind of celebrate and do a Q&A. And if you missed out on sending me a question for this one, just hang tight and hopefully the next one will come kind of soon. I have 2.5 questions for the Q&A. 1, favorite Weezer song and album. 2, do you think Prince was an underrated guitar player and your favorite songs from him? Okay, so I'm already starting off on a really bad note because I don't really have an answer for either of these. The most famous song I know by Weezer is the one about an island in the sun. I really don't know a whole lot about Prince. He was extremely talented. He played like every instrument. He basically composed all of his music himself on at least some of his albums. I guess he's underrated. I guess the fact that I don't know the answer to that question kind of highlights that even more. Best advice getting into a male-dominated industry. So honestly, I'm still kind of dealing and learning about that myself. All I really can say is not as much advice, but just that you just have to keep doing it and you have to basically ignore all the trolls, because there are a lot. What I have experienced as a female is getting a lot of really derogatory messages when someone doesn't agree with my opinion about something. For example, I got called a dumb cunt because I was talking about Godsmack and Shinedown being a really fun and good concert to go to. And I mean, obviously that's aimed towards a female. It does get hard because there's a lot of things that you're gonna work on and do and accomplish, and you're gonna be proud of yourself, and there's gonna be people trying to rain on your parade. You have to stay grounded and realistic in your goals and your visions and everything, but you should be a little bit optimistic on the other hand, or else you're not really gonna go outside of your comfort zone and achieve anything. It's more so just how you respond to it and react to it yourself, and how it can make you actually stronger as a person. And being a woman in male-dominated industries actually has its advantages, because a lot of places are seeking out to have more women as the role model and the idol and the face of their brand. So watch out. Okay, here's a good one too. Who's one band you love that would surprise people? So I didn't want to think too much into this one, but I did go through both my Spotify and my iTunes playlists, and I really could not find a single artist that I love that you guys wouldn't really be able to already tell that I love. I don't have like a guilty pleasure pop band that I'm obsessed with or anything like that. It's just, I'm pig-headed and I stick to my rock. But I am gonna modify it just a little bit to make it make sense so that I can still give you an answer. A band that I have never really spoken about in any of my videos or anything else, and basically a subgenre of rock and roll that I have never touched on, haven't reviewed, haven't done any reactions to, Skynyrd. So, believe it or not, I actually watched the documentary If I Leave Here Tomorrow, and I think it came out this year, and it was on Showtime. I highly recommend it. Anytime something is presented in front of me, there's a chance that I will start binging on it, which is what my current binge series is about. I ended up listening to some of their songs that I saw featured in the documentary that I had never heard before. Like, for example, Give Me Back My Bullets. That is a fucking stomper. That song is awesome. And That Smell. And there's just so many hits that people don't know about of theirs because they're just so focused on Sweet Home Alabama and Freebird. But they have so many other good songs. Like, holy crap. I just started listening to all their discography and I fell in love. And I went on a several week-long binge where I was only listening to Skynyrd every single time I stepped into my car. What's your advice for women who want to work in the music industry and be taken seriously? How do we overcome the they just want to sleep with rock stars bullshit stereotype? Okay, so I kind of touched upon that a little bit earlier, but since this question is aimed more specifically at women in the music industry in general, you can't stand up to someone and try to say, no, I don't just want to sleep with the band, whatever, and nobody's gonna know what does or doesn't happen behind the scenes if you're working with bands unless they're there themselves. I mean, you can take a look at the comment section of the Greta Van Fleet interview on my channel. If you want to be taken seriously, you have to be serious. You have to just be yourself, but be serious and work hard, and it will end up paying off, and people will start to notice that they'll be able to pick you out from the people who are just groupies who are standing on the side of the stage. How did you land the job at Alternative Nation? What degree did you study, and did that help? Okay, so this is a funny story. I've kind of touched upon this a couple of other times, but for newcomers here, yeah, this, I guess we'll answer it. So, first of all, I have loved music my whole life. Never knew how to get started in it or anything. So during high school, I kind of fell in love with psychology and criminology, forensics, that area. So I went to school for criminology and psychology. That is what I got my degree in. So I studied criminology and psychology for 4 years, graduated with that, and now I'm here. And I mean, I can't necessarily say that your degree doesn't matter at all, because 100% if I had known back in high school that I wanted to eventually go into music media and radio, I would have majored in communications and broadcasting and journalism and all of that other stuff. It's not necessary, I don't think. I think what's more necessary is you just developing the communication skills on your own, because a textbook can't teach you how to talk to people. As for Alternative Nation, I don't know, I mean, you could say I work for the site, that it's my job. It's really my side job more than anything. I think a lot of people don't realize that Alternative Nation is freelance for me. I mean, on my social media, I only really get to post about meeting artists every few months, if that. It's a very infrequent thing that happens in my life. I saw that Alternative Nation was looking for contributing writers, and this was halfway through college for me, and I sent them a blog I had been writing where I talk about music. It was kind of just like an online diary for me. It's been a huge push in the right direction for me. I got lucky, and if you want to go and write for a music website, you just have to keep your eyes out for ones that are looking for contributors, and you're most likely gonna have to start on a voluntary basis in the beginning. What are your thoughts on all of the Greta Van Fleet album reviews? Okay, so I did a written Greta Van Fleet album review for Alternative Nation. I did a video one for my personal channel, and I actually just did a video reaction to the Pitchfork article of their album for Alternative Nation as well. As for my thoughts on the general consensus of them, yes, I think Greta Van Fleet sounds like Led Zeppelin most of the time. Not always. There's certainly songs where they don't. I wish that they had diversified their sound a little bit more than they did on this album, just to kind of shut everybody up. I think that the whole they sound too much like Led Zeppelin versus who cares, it's great sounding like Led Zeppelin argument has become a completely commercialized divide. And I think that people either love jumping on one side or the other. They're a full supporter of them or they're fully against them. And I think it's an attention thing. I think that more people would actually be more neutral about them if there wasn't such a polarized divide about it. And I think that people are just cashing in on and racking up the views on the fact that they can either say, I can't stand this, I rate this a 1.6 out of 10, or they're saying, what the fuck is Pitchfork talking about? This guy Jeremy Larson is an asshole. Would you do a podcast if it meant you could have a weekly interview with a rock artist? I get asked this question a lot about whether I would do a podcast or not. My question in response to that is, what would the difference be if I started a podcast versus just kept building my YouTube channel? And I genuinely do want to know what you guys think, because if you would prefer me to have a podcast over a YouTube channel, then I would rather be able to please everybody. I work 9 to 6, Monday through Friday. Barely have time to do a weekly upload on YouTube anymore. So doing a podcast along with the YouTube channel is just out of the question. I don't feel like there's a point in starting over from scratch on a different platform when I can just keep trying to build and continue making better on this one. Plus, I think that videos overall are a lot more engaging than audio. When I listen to audio of someone speaking, I find myself getting a lot more distracted and going and doing other things. Whereas in video, I can spend hours watching YouTube. So as a consumer of YouTube, I personally prefer YouTube over podcasts. Yes, it would be cool if I could interview a rock artist weekly on a podcast. I don't even get to do that on Alternative Nation. You have to have a pretty massive following to get to interview the people that you want to interview. Who is one artist you would want to meet and interview in 2019? Slash. I almost did. And I have a whole video talking about that experience. I almost met him. I was in the same room and hallway as him. I actually almost had the opportunity to interview his rhythm guitarist and his bassist at Aftershock. I ran into them and I spoke to them briefly, but I found out later in my email after the fact that their publicist had reached out and asked if I wanted to do an interview with them. And if not him, then Jerry Cantrell. What is your favorite song and album of the year so far? Actually, I'm not even gonna get to the second part of that question yet because I wanna touch on that. Okay, my favorite album and song of the year so far. I would say that 2018 is really the year that I cemented myself into the modern rock world more. Before that, I was pretty much only just listening to older stuff. My favorite album of 2018 so far is 28 Days in the Valley by Dorothy. I fell in love with them last summer and I wanted so much more from the sound, and she just delivered so much more with this sophomore album. And I don't think there's a single song on it that I would skip because I just don't feel like hearing it. When I listen to that when I'm going on a road trip, I listen to it start to finish and I like every single song. My favorite song of the year is not on that album actually. I love all the songs on the album, but if I have to pick one song, I am going to go with Black Vultures by Hailstorm. I don't think there is a single song that came out this year that I listened to on repeat as many times as I listened to Black Vultures. Now we're gonna get to the last part of the question, and this is going to be the last question of this Q&A. What do you think is the best rock song of the decade so far? Mic drop. I'm not saying it's a bad question, but what I am going to argue is that this decade, first of all, in 2010 I was 14, and like I said, this was really the first year that I got up to date with current rock trends. At the beginning of the decade, Van Halen released A Different Kind of Truth, and I went and saw that tour. And Soundgarden released King Animal in 2012, and I went and I saw that tour. Red Hot Chili Peppers released several albums actually in this decade. Metallica put out Hardwired. Rock as a genre just has molded so much in these past 8 years, because it's not 2020 yet, but in the past 8 years, there has been such a shift because of production and technology and just the consumption and streaming and the way everything about music has changed. For me to answer a question like that, I would rather just jump out the window right there. I'm gonna go with my gut instinct. When I first read this question, a song did come to my mind without me even thinking about it, so I'm just gonna throw it out there. Anastasia by Slash with Miles Kennedy and the Conspirators. that was on 2012's Apocalyptic Love. The guitar work in that song is just on another level, and it really shows that Slash is not just Guns N' Roses. And that ends all of the questions. That is the culmination of the questions for the very first Q&A. I just want to thank everybody again so many times, because I wouldn't be making videos anymore if I didn't know that you were watching them.